All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast. Now, for the first time since 1930, there is a new all time winningest head coach in Notre Dame football as the Notre Dame Fighting Irish defeated the Wisconsin Badgers today at Soldier Field in Chicago. And in the process, head coach Brian Kelly surpassed the legendary Knute Rockne as the most winningest coach in the history of the program, as he now has 106 wins and he stands alone as he has now set the gold standard at South Bend. And you think about some of the legendary coaches that have come after Knute Rockne at Notre Dame, Eric Parsegian, Dan Devine, and Luke Holtz. Neither of these three guys passed Knute Rockne. Not to say that they didn't have their own respective legacies at South Bend, but Brian Kelly is now king of the mountain in regards to the most wins in program history. Now, Notre Dame stumbled following Lou Holtz's departure from in 1996. As from 97 to 2009, the Golden Domers were just becoming another college football program. But since Brian Kelly took over in 2010, Notre Dame has gotten back to relevance. We've seen the Irish have 10 wins or 6 seasons when they've won at least 10 games. And from 97 to 2009, they only had two. We've seen Notre Dame make the college football playoff twice, and they also played in one BCS championship game under Brian Kelly. So you talk about the relevance, keeping Notre Dame in that top 10 or top 15 consistently. That is what Brian Kelly has brought to the table for this club, or for this program, rather. And it's a testament to him because when you think about Notre Dame, you think about household names at the quarterback position that have gone on. Some of them, at least, have gone on to have some success in the NFL. You think about the likes of Joe Montana, Joe Theismann, or of course in those days, Joe Theismann, Rick Meyer, Ron Paulus. I know Ron Paulus didn't have the success at Notre Dame that a lot of people expected him to, but he still was a big name when he came there. And then, of course, Brady Quinn. You look at it, and Brian Kelly hasn't had those guys, but it's all been all about his system. And he has had solid quarterbacks, but it just hasn't been that household name. And with that said, you look at Brian Kelly's tenure and you look at some of the talent that he's put in the NFL, which is currently on roster. Zach Martin with the Dallas Cowboys, Mike McGlinchey with the San Francisco 49ers at offensive tackle, Quentin Nelson on that offensive line for the Indianapolis Colts, Jalen Smith for the Dallas Cowboys, Ronnie Stanley, another solid offensive lineman for the Baltimore Ravens, Stephon Tuitt on that D line for the Pittsburgh Steelers. You think about Tyler Boyd at wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals. So it's one of those where, you know what, it's all about Kelly's system, but he's also sending guys to the National Football League. And that's what it's all about as far as being able to consistently win in college. Because, of course, when you're out there recruiting high school players, they want to see not only what you can do at the collegiate level, but they want to see a guy who's going to help them do what it takes to get to that next level, and that is the National Football League. Now, we know that Notre Dame is still not part of a conference, and I know they have their agreement with the ACC, and of course, it's all about money, which is why they play 5 games, which is the max that they can do without being a part of that conference officially. But nonetheless, Notre Dame has been in a position where they know that they have to go undefeated more often than not in order to make the college football playoff. I know things were different last year. They went undefeated and then they lost to Clemson in the ACC championship game. But nonetheless, in a regular season, just like it is now, the Irish, they don't have that wiggle room. So they've got to go out there and they've got to take care of their business. And of course, there was a time when the independent football programs were so relevant and they played amongst themselves. And then on top of that, they played powers from the conferences. And you think about 40 years ago, the likes of Penn State, the likes of Florida State, the likes of Miami, along with Notre Dame, they were all football independents. Of course, things have changed, but Notre Dame is still holding on to that. And of course, it helps that they're getting the money, television revenue from NBC. But, getting back to Kelly, he is very humble in this process. And you saw that today when his team beat Wisconsin. But it's a situation because he said it himself, and he knows at Notre Dame as a head coach, you are judged by winning a national championship. And the Irish have not won a national title since 1988. And honestly, the last time that Notre Dame really came close, you have to go back to the 93 season when they went 11-1. And in all honesty, I mean, you look at it, Notre Dame did beat Florida State that year. I really thought it should have been a co-national championship, but that's neither here nor there. But ever since then, it didn't come again until 2012 when Notre Dame played for the BCS championship game. So, I mean, we've seen Kelly get Notre Dame to the college football playoffs since the format has expanded. But they faltered in the semifinal games on both occasions. First, they got blown out by Clemson, and then last year they got dominated by Alabama. And this is what Kelly has to do for his program. He's got to find a way to get Notre Dame to take that next step because, yes, Notre Dame is very relevant now. Yes, Notre Dame is a top 10, top 15 team darn near every year, but they've got to find a way to take that next step to get over that hump against the likes of Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and Oklahoma. Why? Because these are the four teams that we are consistently seeing play in the college football playoff every year. And the two times that Notre Dame has gotten there under Kelly, it's been less than stellar. So that is the next step for him. He knows that he still has work to do at this program because he wants to get that national championship. But nonetheless, you still got to tip your hat to this guy. 106 wins at South Bend, where the expectations are always high, is something that you have to, tip your hat to, especially when it's a record that has stood for so long. And you think about the coaches that came between Lou Holtz and Brian Kelly, and they were unable to consistently get it done. Bob Davie, Ty Willingham, and Charlie Weiss. And Brian Kelly gave Notre Dame some stability. Brian Kelly has given Notre Dame respectability on the national scene. And now it's just interesting to see if he can do that last thing on his Notre Dame bucket list, which is being able to lead the Irish to a national championship. But with that said, there is a new record holder for all-time wins at Notre Dame amongst their football program, and it's Brian Kelly. He did something and he toppled a record that stayed in the record books for a very long time. But you know what? Credit to him and what he has done for this Fighting Irish football program. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take the time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out, drop a line, and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, signing off, saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.